have to put me in the car. They got to walk me across the street to the police station. And my ex-girlfriend, Sherry, who's been a wonderful friend for the last 30 plus years still, came and picked me up. And when she walked through the lobby, I was about 20 feet away from her, and I was homeless. I'd lost everything. I was living in a friend's basement. I'd got back up to Rhode Island, and I looked at her and I said, man, I'm done. I can't do this. And she says, I can smell you from here. And that was my last night of drinking.
Hello, Liberty Spenders. Today's guest is Rob Ekno. He's an award-winning author, screenwriter, and the driving force behind the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival. Rob's journey is nothing short of inspiring, from overcoming homelessness and addiction to building a thriving, faith-based film community and hosting the award-winning TV show KICFF Presents. We're excited to talk to Rob about his path, his passion for storytelling, and how his faith has shaped his mission. Rob, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Kurt. Honor to be here. What a blessing to talk about all this good stuff that God's doing.
Yes, I have loved hearing every bit of it. And you and I have talked about how God is moving multiple times. And I wanted really to get people into this story. Now, one thing I didn't realize till I got to know Matt Wilmoth a little bit is just how Knoxville is actually a popular place for film producers and other people in the movie business to be at. And I had no clue about that. When I met both of you guys, you're in Knoxville, you're doing work in film and entertainment. And I thought, oh, this is just random. These guys are in Knoxville. But this is actually a common place for this kind of work.
Yeah, there's a lot of, there's a big company, there's a lot of reenactment shows that you see on some of the cable channels and stuff. So that's popular. And then there's also a lot of creative Christians that are building their way out. And, there's a lot of horror stuff and, all kind of genres as well. One would think that more in Nashville, but Knoxville has a very good, steady, they have great production companies, and so it is the hub. And East Tennessee, Kurt, if you didn't know, is supposedly known as God's country.
Yeah.
So to have a Christian film festival in the Great Smoky Mountains is not technically all that unusual. But the weird part is that they tried for 15 years, apparently. This is what I got told before I moved to Knoxville. And I didn't move here for any particular reason, but I'll just share this quickly. But all of a sudden, we've got one running now, and the biggest thing at our recent one a couple months back was that people from Canada, the Isle of Malta, various parts of the U.S., Las Vegas, stuff, all like, wow, you guys in Tennessee, you guys got a really beautiful state here.
Yeah, it is gorgeous. I like Tennessee is so nice and convenient from Indiana, where I live. And so if you want to kind of get away, and you want to get away far enough to feel like you're gone someplace, but you don't want to have to fly to Florida. You can drive to Gatlinburg. You can go to Dolly World. I took my kids there last year. They thought it was great. There's in Gatlinburg, there's the restaurant where the chickens cluck. The kids would have gone there every day. They thought that was the coolest thing. But you're not originally from Knoxville, and then like you said, you moved there, and then some stuff happened. What got you to Knoxville? And then tell me a little bit about how the whole Knoxville International Christian Film Festival was inspired and got started.
Well, that was kind of crazy because I grew up actually in Rhode Island, and I had a flourishing broadcasting career. I was a nationally syndicated sportscaster. I was covering World Series, Super Bowls, whatever. And then I learned to drink a little bit too much, and then I threw in some white powder, and the next thing you know, everything was gone, and I was taking a Greyhound bus to Fort Lauderdale to live out of the Greyhound bus station so I didn't have to freeze to death in the winter. And one thing led to another, and it came fast forward to November 28, 1992, where I got stopped at 2:30 in the morning by Warwick, Rhode Island Police Department. Literally, Kurt, 200 yards. They didn't even have to put me in the car. They got to walk me across the street to the police station. And my ex-girlfriend, Sherry, who's been a wonderful friend for the last 30 plus years still, came and picked me up. And when she walked through the lobby, I was about 20 feet away from her, and I was homeless. I'd lost everything. I was living in a friend's basement. I'd got back up to Rhode Island, and I looked at her and I said, man, I'm done. I can't do this. And she says, I can smell you from here. that That was my last night of drinking. And here's the funny part, this being kind of a Christian type of deal going on here. My first amends 28 days later was to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was when I was about 10 years old, I was an acolyte at an Episcopal church in Rhode Island. And one day I decided I was going to borrow $2 from the collection plate without actually technically asking anyone if I could do that. So when I brought the collection plate back to the sacristy, I grabbed $2 and I bought baseball cards or something. I thought that for the next 23 years that Jesus was punishing me for taking that $2. But as you and I, and I'm sure our wonderful audience already knows, he forgave me the second I even thought about taking that money, before I even took it, right? But that's not what I believed. And anyways, I get 28 days sober, and I'm staying in my friend's basement, and the church was still there, and he let me borrow his truck, and I went to midnight mass on December of 1992, and boom, I put $5 in the collection plate because I was still homeless. I didn't have a lot of money. I said, Lord, I don't know how much interest there is on $2 over 23 years, but I got $5. It finally came around. I put that $5 in there, Kurt. Haven't had a line of cocaine or a drink of alcohol since.
Wow, that's amazing. And, it's so interesting. It's earthly wisdom, I think, to say, well, God's punishing me. That makes every bit of sense.
Yeah.
Because we would have punished somebody, right? Right? That's what we would have done. You deserve it. I mean, it's only $2, but, we would have done that. And how, in some respects, the devil is so effective at telling you a lie that affected your behavior for 28 years, right? Makes you, hesitant to go to church because God's punishing you for stealing $2 from the offering plate, right?
Absolutely.
And, probably underneath a crucifix, right, where you were visually represented what Jesus had done to save you, and the fact that you're convinced that he hates you over $2, right? It's an interesting.
I thought of it like that. The Holy Spirit, I think, just zapped me or something when you said that. I just got a big burst of something that went through me that was kind of like, it kind of brought a quick tear to my eye when you said that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so, I was reading a little bit about this, and thinking a lot recently about what is the devil actually do in our lives. And the Bible says he's a liar, right? And he talks into our minds and he tells us lies. And that's really, we can be all focused on some of the, other stuff. But in reality, that's what the Bible tells us. The devil's a really good liar.
Yep.
And he can convince us of silly things like that, things that just aren't, they're not true, and keep us in bondage over it. But thankfully, God came and met you, and you got free from it.
Absolutely. It's amazing. So, because some people ask, and they're like, yeah, that Jesus thing and whatever. And all I can tell you is my experience. I put $5 back in, basically like the lady in the Bible, right? She gave her little, coin there, and others had more to give, but they didn't. And she got rewarded, and was basically, here you go. I'm giving you basically everything I got. I needed a couple dollars still to eat or put some gas money in the car or whatever. So basically, I gave them everything, and I haven't done anything crazy since, as far as that goes.
Yeah. Well, because you can't say you've not done anything crazy since, because you moved to Knoxville and you heard God tell you to start a Christian film festival. That's a little crazy. So how did that happen?
Well, once I finally got sober, I had 11 months sober, and I heard the voice, go out to Hollywood and try to make something out of yourself, because I had worked on radio and TV in Southern New England for a while, and it was going well until I decided to screw it up, right? And so my dad blessed me with a 1984 Chevy Chevette 5-speed diesel engine, two-tone paint, that was falling off. It was his old, he was a welder, built some of the biggest bridges in Southern New England, and it was his welding equipment car and stuff. So I had greasy seats, I had roll-down windows, no air conditioning, but it was all I could afford at that particular point in time. My dad said, you're welcome to it if you want to go live your dreams.
Yeah.
And so I drove that out there, and it's pretty hot in the summertime in Southern California when you have no air conditioning and you're rolling up windows. So Anyways, there's a beautiful story all about that in one of my books. And so anyways, I'm out there for 31 years, and in 2 years and a few months ago now, God said, you and your wonderful partner in life, Miss Monique, you guys got to go to Knoxville. And it wasn't just Tennessee. It wasn't Nashville or Chattanooga or Bristol or wherever. The folks in LA that said that were very specific that you guys have to move to Knoxville. Mm-hmm. And we got here and we had absolutely no clue what we were going to do. Nothing. And 2 months later, somebody from LA called and said, are you going to the NRB convention, right? The National Religious Broadcasters. They said, it's happening in Nashville. And I said, I don't know. I just moved here. I don't know anything about that. What is that? And she said, oh, you have books and scripts. You need to go there. Anyways, I go there and I meet this lady, wonderful lady, Dorothy Spalding, who owns a TV station down in Augusta, Georgia, a Christian station. She invites me down there to share my testimony. And then I had also won some award for one of my screenplays and one of my other books at a festival in Newport News, Virginia, which of course, all of this, Kurt, I've never been to any of that stuff at this time, right? So it's an 11-hour drive. I go up there. And here's the weird part, or interesting, however you want to call it, Kurt, is that the person who was running the festival said, sir, you're like 11 hours away. You don't really need to come to the event. We'll send you your certificates and email and stuff like that. You don't need to do all. And I kept saying to Monique, Kurt, something God is telling me that I have to get in my car and make this drive. I don't know why, but it's overwhelming that he wants me to physically get there. And so I drive up there. It was April 20th of 2024. I pull into the parking lot on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, 11 hours from Knoxville, and a guy I never met in my life. It's raining out. It wasn't pouring, but it was raining enough. I was in the parking lot. I didn't even finish putting my car in park, Kurt. And this guy comes out, knocks on my window, and he says, sir, before you leave here today, I have been given a message, and you are not to drive home to Knoxville until you receive this message. And I'm like, I haven't even shut my car off. I'm in a place I've never been with somebody I've never met. And anyway, that's how it happened. And then I go inside, and it was a small red carpet event, and I was ready to go home because I had an 11-hour drive, and it was already 2 in the afternoon. So we're talking like, 2, 3 in the morning I'm going to get home, and I'm driving on roads I'd never been on. And he says, sir, where are you going? You can't leave. I told you I'd been given a message to give you. And he said, here's the message. He said, you're an award-winning screenwriter and author and speaker, a member of the Screen Actors Guild since 1995, and a TV host. He said, I've been told that you are to immediately drive home to Knoxville tonight, sir. I don't care if it's 2, 3 in the morning. The message is you are to start the Knoxville Christian Film Festival to help provide a much-needed showcase for award-winning filmmakers honoring God. And I look at this guy, and I'm like, dude, do you realize I haven't even finished unpacking yet? I have no budget. I know nobody in town. I did not come here to start a Christian film festival. And he said, no, sir, you're not listening to me. You are to do this tonight when you get home. You're to go on Film Freeway, which is like the eBay of film festivals where you can sign up for folks who don't know. And anyways, he said, you're just doing online-only film festival. You start it tonight, start taking submission. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. So I leave there anyways. And it was so crazy that I call my good friend Randa, who's in Bristol, Virginia. And I had asked her, we had done a couple of faith-based films with Dean Cain, Eddie McClintock, some of these guys before I moved here. And I said, Randa, I said, remember a couple weeks ago that you told me that you thought God brought me here to elevate me to new heights of a man that he'd never taken me before? I said, you're not going to believe what just happened to me over the last couple of hours. And I told her, and I called her because she's a graphic designer as well. So I said, listen, if you'll do a logo for me, I'll put it up on Film Freeway, and it's so crazy that we'll see what happens. And as much as she loves me and I adore her, she said, you know, Rob, for 15 years now, I've watched people fail because Bristol, Virginia is right. It borders Bristol, Tennessee. So they're neighbors, right? And Knoxville's only another hour and a half. So she's got plenty of friends in the entertainment business. She says, I've watched people fail for 15 years now trying to do the same exact thing you're telling me. And I said, listen, I don't know who any of these people, I don't know. All I know, it's so crazy that God made it that I wanted to drive up there 11 hours and some stranger doesn't even let me get out of my car, that I have to at least give it a shot and trust that maybe
right.
he got shot. And I said, listen, whether you design the logo or not, you're my sister in Christ. I still love you. I said, but before you say your final no, do me a favor, at least ask him what he wants you to do. Fine, I'll ask him.
Right.
So literally, Kurt, less than an hour later, I needed to stop at the men's room on the 81 freeway coming down here from Northern Virginia. And I pull over and there's a text message and she used her husband's name. And she said, my husband says, I don't need to pray about it. It's a no-brainer. I need to help you right away. So she designs a logo. Once she got that done after a couple of days, I put it up on this Film Freeway submission site. And as soon as I put it online, it said, hey, since you're only going to be doing online only, you have to promote it yourself. We used to allow for a public link when you signed up, but we stopped that a month ago. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I'm asked to start a festival. Nobody knows me from a hole in the wall in Knoxville. I'm asked to start a Christian film festival that has failed 15 years in a row. And now I've got to promote it without having any promotional background on social media. And I look up in the sky and God's like, yep, that's the deal. and I'm like, okay, I said, listen, I'll be the Noah if you'll promote it, Lord. So what I did was, when I loaded up all the submissions for like feature film, whatever, short film, music video, and I put, whatever prices, I prayed and I said, what's a fair price to charge for this, for a new, and so I put them all up there. And when I went to click online, it also still had the button where I could click public. I said, oh, I thought they said I couldn't click public. So I clicked it and it took it. Well, little did I know, Kurt, that if you click public and you don't give Film Freeway a contract showing that you have an actual physical venue to hold an event at the end of your festival, then it automatically is free. So you can do public, but every submission has to be free. So I wake up it started at midnight, July 2nd, 2024. I wake up at 5 in the morning and there's 20 submissions. China, Malaysia, Armenia, Germany, Italy, Sweden. I'm like, oh, and by the way, I said, Lord, if we're going to do this, then I'm going to call it the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival. Let's introduce the whole world to the beauty of the Great Smoky Mountains.
Yeah.
So Knoxville Internet. So all of a sudden, I've got all these submissions from around the world. And then I looked and I said, $0? What are you talking about? Well, one would think that's a bad thing, right? And I thought so right off the bat. And then I realized, wait a minute, I asked him to promote this, right? So what was I, somebody with no budget, no anything, able to do 5 hours into this brand new festival that nobody even knew about? I was legitimately, honestly able to go online on Facebook and social media, whatever it is, True Social, wherever they are, right? And I was able to say, folks, we just started this thing 5 hours ago, and we've already got submissions from Sweden and Italy and Germany, and it was all true.
Right.
And from there, it took off. And so I went and I refixed it all and I made it online only and they started getting submissions. But now I had a link. People saw that there were submissions because I showed pictures of the filmmakers that submitted. They put a headshot up of themselves. So I said, hey, Joe from Italy is here, and here's Susan from Sweden and blah, blah, blah. And so people could see it was real. That was just a message the Lord gave me. And then all of a sudden, I got a guy that used to be the manager of marketing for, the big truck stops across America. Well, he took over one of them when they had 30,000 employees. He brought it up to 475,000 before they sold out, one of the biggest ones across America. Happened to meet him. He comes over the house to ask me to speak at his church and share my sober testimony. And he's talking to me. He says, if you can get this amount of submissions being a brand new film, it wasn't a giant number, but it wasn't that low. And he said, consider it a huge success. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, well, that's not a lot there. And he's like, no, it's not a ton, but it would actually be a really, really good, take it from a guy that took the company from 30,000 to 475. And I'm thinking, okay, he probably knows what he's talking about. Well, Then I call a mentor out in Hollywood, and he's in the film business, and he gives me the same exact number as that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, Kurt, 4 months later, we got 4 less than double what they said. It ended 4 months later. We got 4 less than double what they said would be a great success.
Mm.
So I'm like, okay, well, this is pretty cool. And then for an online-only festival, the Tennessee film community calls me out of the blue, another godshot, says, hey, we're doing an event here in West Tennessee, or West Knoxville, I should say, at one of the state colleges. Would you like 3 hours of free theater time? We'll pay for the technicians, the security. We're having an entertainment event, and if you bring films, we'll let you use the theater for free to highlight all these films.
Mm.
So I'm like, okay, well, it ended up being I needed 4 hours because people from 8 states, this ended up being January of 2025 because we had some bad weather, so we had to push it off a couple of weeks from 2024. And we had people, Kurt, from 8 states show up to see me who they didn't know from a hole in the wall, right? And I'm jumping up and down. I'm like, this is amazing, right? And the red carpet, when that guy, the marketing guy, asked me to speak at his church about a half hour south of Knoxville, when another guy heard my testimony about my sobriety and stuff in the film festival, he says, how can I help you? And I said, well, I don't know what you want to do, but we could use a red carpet banner so we could take some pictures and be real professional and stuff. He goes, how much is it? I said, $300. He says, here you go.
Yeah.
That's how we got our red carpet banner. So that's how everything got off to a crazy start.
Yeah. So that was for the 2025 version, right? So when is the next, is it maybe if it's online only, it's sort of evergreen. Is there a date in which this is your film festival, or how does that work?
No. So here's the crazy thing. So now, literally the week before we actually did that one, January 2025, I contacted Kevin Sorbo's partner down in Pigeon Forge, and I said, guys, I got this thing that the Tennessee film community is doing, and I've already got people from 8 states that have promised to show up, and we're going to be showcasing their films, right? And so would you guys like to meet? I think because they were starting this thing called Rise Up Con, Rise Up to Jesus, and it was kind of like a Comic Con for faith-based celebrities. And so I go down and meet them, Kurt, and it took me about an hour and a half to get home because I made a couple of stops. From the time I left their office on like a Tuesday night to drive home, they already, I'll get it out of the way, you can see the yellow logo right there on the bottom side.
Yep.
Knoxville. I didn't know that Kevin's partner was a marketing expert. They designed that, and they emailed that to me before I even got home, and they said, we think we're going to be working together.
Mm.
Well, fast forward now they sent me a place that we were going to have it at the Music Road Convention Center in Pigeon Forge, right there in the heart of everything Dollywood and all the good stuff, right? And so now I had a letter to send to Film Freeway, so now they made it public.
Ah.
Now it's a public, right? And they end up, Adam Felt is the guy that runs it with Kevin and stuff, and he ends up blessing me with 7.25 hours of showcase time over 3 days. That was June of 2025, 3 days, June 27, 28, and 29. And he provided us an area to put the red carpet banner, like right when you walked in, so people, anybody in the public, whoever came, could have a Hollywood moment and get pictures taken on the red carpet. And they brought us in and they blessed us with all of this.
Nice.
And we had people from 12 states, and another family came down from Canada to be there with us. And that worked out so well that 3 days after that, right about July 1st of 2025, Adam calls and says, meet me at Cracker Barrel. We got to talk about next year. So back a few months ago, we end up having our 3rd live event. Don't forget, this is online only.
Right.
And yet, God has a better plan.
Yeah.
And if you remember the wording the guy used in Newport News, he said, you are to provide a showcase for much needed Christian events to be out there. He didn't say you needed to actually be the festival. He said you needed, so the showcase, so Rise Up, they have this whole event and stuff, and they have blessed us with showcase space.
Mm.
So back on April 10th and 11th, a few months back, we ended up having our third live showcase for a online-only festival. People came from 14 states, Canada, and Kurt, a gentleman filmmaker, brilliant guy, came from the Isle of Malta.
Wow.
Over to our festival. It was beyond amazing. And so in the 3 film festivals over this short period of time, in less than 2 years, I was adding it up before the show here, we've had people from 18 states show up at our online-only festivals, plus Canada and the Isle of Malta. But we've also had submissions total from 26 states, including Alaska, Montana, Oklahoma, Iowa, Arizona, Colorado, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and 11 countries, including Sweden, Italy, Spain, Mexico, China, Malaysia, Armenia, Switzerland, Germany, the Isle of Malta, and Canada, and all the other states that have participated: Tennessee, Kentucky, New Hampshire, Connecticut. Actually, there was one more. I forgot. We had 2 award winners from Indiana, where you are. I forgot to write them down. So 27 states, including Indiana, Connecticut, New Jersey, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Missouri, Texas, California, Nevada, Washington, Ohio, and Michigan, all coming to what's supposed to be an online-only festival. So anybody that's watching right now, if you don't think this is it clicked in for me. I had to accept that this is like the mega divinely appointed festival, right? Because this stuff just doesn't happen. And even meeting you, Kurt, was a by chance thing. Another thing, I'm at a little networking event. Somebody mentioned something about your little thing about something at NRB, Sarah, back in February of 2026, right? And I'm like, who's that? And I contact you, and I go and meet you and Kristen, and we have a burger or whatever, and now we're talking again, and you had me on another thing, and it's just like, he's got a plan. I don't know what it is. I don't have to. All I know is he said, Rob, this is what I need you to do. Just say yes. Don't ask questions. I mean, it's crazy.
If you're listening to this show, it's probably because you understand something most people don't. Marketing to Liberty spenders isn't just about ads or tactics, it's about trust. And in the real world, trust moves through relationships. And that's why private introductions and deal flow are such a core part of what we do.
So FastPass is a private introduction and deal flow network for Christian and conservative leaders who already have influence and want to scale fast. It's not open networking, it's intentional introductions between people who already share alignment. We've seen one client land a $25,000 opportunity from a single introduction. Another told us that FastPass has become his largest source of referrals, not because of volume, but because of fit. And yet another closed her equity round at a key moment just due to the right introduction.
When you book a one-to-one consult with us, we're not handing you a list or making big promises. Instead, we're having a real conversation about what you're building, who you want to meet, and whether FastPass makes sense for this season for you. So no pressure, no hustle, and no awkward pitch from us.
Yeah. If you're ready to grow through relationships instead of forcing everything on your own, head to libertyspenders.com/FastPass and book a one-to-one consult with us.
In worst case, you leave with clarity. Best case, the right introductions change the trajectory of what you're building.
Okay, back to the episode.
Yeah, well, it is. And just as things build up and just happen, it's very exciting. And
don't forget, Kurt, I apologize, but don't forget, because this is huge. Remember, I met Dorothy Spalding at TV, down in Augusta, Georgia.
Yes.
Right? She invites me down, and she allows me to announce all the award winners before the Rise Up Festival in June of 2025. While I'm reading them off and naming them, she's sitting there going, what was that, Kurt? Luidhardt?
Yeah.
What was his name? And I'm like, yes. And what did he win again? He won the podcast for Liberty Spenders. And she's writing this stuff down. And all of a sudden, like 10 minutes into the show, we're doing a live show, and she says, we need to talk after the show's over. Like live on TV.
Yeah.
She takes me out to Longhorn Steakhouse in Augusta with her family, who are general manager, vice president, all that. They said, we will bless you with 6 months of airtime every Saturday for a half an hour if you'll give us 20 whatever amount of shows fit in that time slot all at once, because we're going to actually pull somebody else off the air because we love what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I had hip surgery last year, about a year ago. And I'm at home and I'm like, well, I've got no budget, no nothing. God says you have a computer, you have iMovie on your thing, and you've got graphics and you've got stuff. Just start editing.
Yeah.
And so I edited 23 shows, drove them down to Augusta in September of 2025. We started our first half-hour show, and the very first day I get a call from the station, Rob, people want to know where they can watch the replay. So we started a YouTube channel, and then back several months ago at NRB of this year, in 2026, I run into a gentleman, Rob Patz, of Abundant TV, and he says, we'll run your show 4 days a week, the host show being at 8:30 on Thursday night in prime time, which is, anybody knows about TV, Thursday is the big night on any network. And I'm like, are you kidding? And I said, let me just ask Dorothy if she's okay with that, because she's the one that got this whole thing started, and I don't stab people in the back. He said, that's great, I can wait. I went over and asked them, and they said, we want you to promote God's goodness to the world. You make sure we get the first show. Wait 2 weeks and you can give the other shows to anybody else on planet Earth that you want to.
Yeah.
Now we have a TV show running 5 days a week that the Lord has blessed us with.
Yeah. I love it. And I love the opportunity to promote Christian film. So people out there who aren't really in the movie business and don't really understand how people promote their films, or why a film festival is important. How does a film festival, how does what you do benefit getting good quality films and movies into the public's hands? How does a music festival fit into that, or a film festival fit into that?
Well, that's the biggest problem, is distribution, right? So a lot of films, there's a lot of great films out there in this world that nobody will ever see on the big screen. Why? Because it's not about the budget. You could make a film with family and friends. Matter of fact, one of the guys that came down, Kurt, from Ohio, came down. He's a high school media professor. Him and his students shot a 2-hour amazing film with an iPhone 12. So it's not about the money that you have to make the film. The problem is you need about 5 to 10 times more to market the film. So if somebody gave you $1 million right now and said, Kurt, you and Kristen go out and make a movie, here's $1 million, you're all excited, I got this film. And like, oh, how do I tell anybody about it?
Right.
How do I get it somewhere? And that's why the streaming services are so popular, because they're at least allowing people the way to get out there. So now that we have this platform, that's a bonus. It's like, would you rather win $500 at a film festival, or would you rather have a half-hour show that's going to air 5 times around the world, plus go on our YouTube channel now that sits there and you can constantly promote to investors or folks that may be interested in helping you do other works and say, this is our last work. It's such a valuable piece. And I will tell you this, people need to feel valued for the work they're doing. We don't get to just jump up and down. I get it. Hey, I'm doing good work for the Lord. I'm being a nice guy and I'm praying and I'm being a nice neighbor. That's all wonderful. But realistically, Kurt, right, like this show that you're doing, we had a discussion before it started when you were talking about how you were a connector and you were bringing people together that were kind of God shots, that, you hold an event, somebody shows up, meets somebody else, and now they're working together, or possibly, all this stuff. And so that's what this festival is. And I can honestly say, not with ego or anything, just because of the work and the life that I've lived, why God chose me to do this. Because I've had to make a lot of decisions. I'll give you one, for example. Okay, the June Festival in 2025. So we got this young lady out in Seattle, Washington, submits a 4-minute video to us, and it's about recovery. Well, I have all these years of recovery, over almost 34 years of recovery, so I saw the video and I said, I looked at one of the judges. I said, this is this young girl's own personal story of recovery, right?
Yeah.
Well, but on our submissions, it says use of the F word is an automatic disqualification, right? It's got to be family friendly. It can have reality to it, but we don't need that stuff while we're showcasing films honoring God. So all of a sudden, we're watching this little short thing, and all of a sudden, the girl comes home and goes, Mom, I went to another AA meeting today, and blah, 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 and it was her, movie mom. And all of a sudden, Mom comes up and goes, you're never going to be anything but an F and, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. I said, it was such a beautiful piece. Until that, I got a disqualifier. And then I said, you know what, Lord? We have a young filmmaker living her dream. We have a young girl in sobriety who's very sensitive right now, right? Because I'm very involved with helping newcomers. I said, is there something else I can do besides being a regular film festival and just throwing it in the trash?
Right.
And he said, send her an email and ask her to dub out that one word or dub over the word, and you'll give her a free submission to resubmit because she's already paid her money, and you'll allow her to resubmit if she's willing. Because, and I say that, Kurt, because some people, I've been to meetings, recovery meetings, and people, that's their only word they know how to say. And it's like their whole life is, and it's like, so I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to help you out. So about a week later, this young lady, she's somewhere between, I'm guessing 18 and 22. And she writes back and she says, Dear Mr. Ekno, I will take advantage of that and I'll do it this weekend. I'll send it to you. So a couple days later, I get this resubmission and it was blank, dead air, Kurt. And she wrote an email and said, Mr. Ekno, thank you for the opportunity to resubmit. I appreciate that. She said, rather than dub over it, what I did was I just cut that 2 seconds of air. I just cut it out and left it blank with nothing. She said, because you know how when sometimes you're screaming at somebody so loud that you just lose your voice?
Yeah.
And I showed that to one of my other judges, and she said, babe, you even gave that woman a chance to be more creative on top of it. And so instead of this girl being all bummed out and stuff and maybe going out and drinking again, whatever, and I don't have any control over that anyways, but I can at least, make it, give her some excitement in life. Kurt, she gets on a plane with her mom from Seattle and comes all the way to Pigeon Forge to watch her 4-minute video shown in front of filmmakers from around the world. And she comes to the red carpet and she had so much joy and happiness, and her mom was so excited. And it was just like, we all need to feel good about the stuff we're doing. We're humans, right? So at some point, we need to feel good about doing a podcast or connecting people or having a film festival. And what happens, as you mentioned, Matt Wilmoth in the beginning, his wonderful wife, Susan, was a great part of our prayer table that we had as well. They're praying for folks. But Matt and Susan, it's all about people ended up working together, filmmakers from various parts of the country and stuff in the world. They made connections there to continue doing more good works for God.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is very, very powerful. Look at this one guy flew over from the Isle of Malta. He went from Malta to Holland to Chicago to Knoxville and then took an hour or so Uber over to Pigeon Forge from Tyson Airport. He was the happiest guy, and he came bearing gifts. He brought beautiful hand-carved wooden crosses, a bottle of champagne. It was like he treated the 3 ladies that helped me out, my team, not helped me out, my wonderful team, Ava, Randa, and Monique. And it was like they're so excited because they don't get the opportunity. Most people, Kurt, as you probably know, unless you are the Kevin Sorbos and you've had that bit of success, or the Dean Canes, and they're wonderful people, but I'm just saying most people don't achieve certain levels.
Right.
And so to be recognized for the work that you are doing for our platform, I've seen in 3 festivals why God has asked us to do this for sure.
Yeah. And you sort of alluded to this, and we were talking about it before we started, but one of the other things that you've been working on is something called the Hollywood Prayer Network. So,
yes.
So I know it's a bit of a quick non sequitur here, but talk about what is the Hollywood Prayer Network as well?
So I come to Knoxville after being in Hollywood for 31 years, and their headquarters were like 2 miles from where I lived, and I had no clue it even existed. So they're in their 25th year. They've got over 10,000 members worldwide, and they walk around Hollywood. They do certain things like walk around Hollywood, and they'll go to the different studios, once a month, and they'll pray over the studios. Or people in Hollywood that are going through a hard time, like P. Diddy, for example. They went and had a big deal about him when he got in trouble and all that to help, change his mindset, or whatever it might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden I see a post on Facebook, and I'm like, what's this Hollywood Prayer Network thing, right? And so I contacted them and they said, we don't have a chapter in Knoxville. Would you like to start the chapter in Knoxville? And I'm like, okay. And so I start this chapter and I just put it out there to people. And I say, anybody want to pray for entertainment projects, as we discussed at the beginning of the show, individual projects, or maybe, people's moms are going through challenges, their wife, whatever they might be. So we just started having a couple of meetings at our offices here in Knoxville. And then at our most recent event, and we're going to continue it on, I said to the Hollywood Prayer Network, I said, if you guys will give us a nice tablecloth with your logo and a poster of our logo, Knoxville and all this, I said, I'll get people, because what happened, Kurt, was in June of 2025 at our second festival, people were coming up to us saying, hey, can you guys pray for us? Can you guys? And we're like, what do you want us to pray about? It's like, 'cause we weren't prepared for prayer. This was our first time with the Rise Up. And so I contacted Kevin's partner, Adam, and stuff. And I said, guys, there's a blank space, over here where there's a 6-foot table. Well, Hollywood Prayer Network will give me a beautiful tablecloth, stretch cloth, and we'll have a poster and we'll set up. I will staff it with people that love to pray for people in the entertainment business and stuff. And any attendees that show up at the place, right? If you'll let us use that space, because it's normally a couple $100. And they said, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
So I got 17 prayer warriors for Friday and Saturday to stock. And Kurt, before we even opened, and I put a table and I put a box with cards so you can fill out if you wanted. But realistically, a good portion of the people wanted to get prayed for right then and there. It was like, and we had 6 or 7 people praying for people, whether they were just attendees or not. And it was powerful. And just a few months back, we got recognized by the Hollywood Prayer Network for that work. They send out a worldwide newsletter. So it was kind of cool. And so we're building up these things so where we can go to events and have a table. And I'll tell you what, you talk about people feeling energized, and we got the biggest compliments. I did not get a chance to be part of the prayer team because I was running the showcases and the red carpet and stuff. So I didn't, but the reports I got from the prayer warriors, oh my gosh, just unbelievable. People with cancer and filmmakers coming and family members, that were passing, it just all kinds of stuff. And we were able to add all this joy and love and peace and serenity into their lives through the Hollywood Prayer Network. So Karen Covell and Kelly and Sarah out in Hollywood, we got to give special thanks to them as well. And we plan on doing this at every event that we come to because it is just beyond powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, this has been an amazing story here. And we're bumping up against our time limit. Everybody, I ask every one of our guests 3 questions as part of what we call our lightning round. So it's the same 3 questions for everybody. And the idea is 90 seconds on each one. So we'll see if we can pull that off. Sort of low accountability here, but on the 90 seconds, there's no buzzer. But I like to start with, helping people picture, hopefully decades from now, you're lying in your bed, it's your final days, your final weeks, and you're looking back on your life. How will you know that you've had a life well lived?
Man, well, I've already found some cool stuff that people have sent me with my books on sobriety. People tell me that they're using my books as part of their daily recovery from my testimony. So one on that aspect of things, and those continue to live on the internet, and they're always available. So as long as the world is still existing, I still have a chance to help make people's lives better, even not being here, by the sharing of my story, which is why I always tell people, you got a story, tell it somehow. The film festival itself, we're looking to build it up to, we want to help Rise Up Con be able to build itself. But my team also has visions of doing a real big Christian festival with workshops for the lady, not your typical stuff where you get distributorship money or things like that. We want people to leave, and they did this time. I got emails and stuff. People left that place going, hallelujah, this was amazing. And that's what I want. As I'm lying there through my last days, I want to make sure that I've set it up perfectly so that others can continue on and move forward, whether it be part of my team or other filmmakers who want to come on board and continue this. But I want to make it so good that people can't let it die, even though the Lord is taking me in a different direction.
Yeah. And now for something completely different. I always like to ask people for 90 seconds on anything that's had you gone down the rabbit hole recently. Maybe it's a hobby that you've become obsessed about, a good book you've read, sports team you're a giant evangelist for. What's got your attention lately? Like that's not the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival. What's really got you intrigued?
Well, I will tell you this. A few months back, I did something, Kurt, that I never thought I would ever do in the history of mankind. And I elevated my faith in my eyes because I have had the most incredible experiences. And I decided to go from non-denominational, and I decided back on Easter of 2026 to join the Catholic faith. And through that, I have been going to Mass at least 3-4 times a week. I have been getting involved in helping people. I am like a kid in a candy store, having gotten information that I thought I would never, ever do. But while I was in church over the time that I was going to classes, there were several times where I just burst into tears, and I could hear Jesus say, "How many times do I have to tell you that I adore you? This is where I want you to be." And so through personal experience for me, I did something I would never, ever do. You could have bet me $10 trillion, and I'm like, you win. I'll never do. But I felt it so immensely, and I have become a kid in a candy store over the last couple of months, and people see me, and I'm always smiling and happy. Even when bad things happen, I'm still so much happier. So for me, I'm always looking to elevate my faith and get a closer relationship with God and Jesus and this. And so for me, that's the choice that I made, something I never thought I would ever do, and it has brought me an incredible amount of joy.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. You know, I have a number of friends, you know, some people have different experiences. Some people find themselves moving from a traditional denomination into a non-denominational church. I see some people go the other way. And it's just amazing how God works and puts us where plants us where we'll grow. So the last of the 90 seconds, this is the easy one. I want you to pretend like people have been watching the show here, so they don't have any context. Who is the kind of person who should meet you, maybe because they want to participate in the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival? How do you help them? What kind of partnerships are you looking for? That sort of thing. And how can they reach out to you?
All right, so you can reach out to us on KnoxvilleChristianFilms.com. Everything you need to know is there on that website. And for those who might want to join us on the ride of being a sponsor, being somebody who wants to be a financial partner, who was blessed, we are not looking. I have a beautiful, and I don't know how far I can flip through it, but there's a beautiful 25-page packet here that I actually gave Kurt a while back as well, and we're updating, and I'm happy to email that or whatever to you. But we're looking for not investors. We want people who have been blessed financially, who say, "Oh my God, this is a big deal. This is clearly a divine appointment, and I've been sitting here at home, and I've been blessed, and I'm just wondering what I can do with this extra, whatever it is, 5,000, 100,000, million, whatever it is." Because our ultimate goal, Kurt, this is what I want to leave as my ultimate legacy, to answer kind of two questions. I want a full-time, or at least until 9 o'clock at night, Monday through Sunday, Christian event center here in Knoxville, where we have a couple of theaters where we can show award-winning films a couple days a week on Friday and Saturday. We can have an actual theater for theater students to put on plays. We can have a small movie studio there as well. We can have scholarships for people to have a free art classes, acting classes, music classes. It can be used as a banquet hall. It can be used for seminars. That's what I want to do. That is my ultimate goal. So if you are somebody who has a building, who you have resources, or you just been really blessed financially and say, "I would just love to put my name on that building," please contact us at KnoxvilleChristianFilms.com.
Awesome. It's been awesome to have you on the show. A true privilege, and hearing your story has been wonderful. Of course, this is the third time I've heard it, but every time I love it. So thank you so much for joining us, Rob.
Oh, thanks for blessing us, and I hope if you've been watching, that you can pray about what Randa prayed about, which was, do I really want to get involved? And ever since she has, it's been a ride of no tomorrow. It's just been, you can't even imagine it, Kurt.
Yes. And for those of you listening, anytime that I get somebody to spend almost an hour with me, it means so much immensely, because I know your time is important. So thank you so much. If you liked what you saw, please check us out and subscribe and like us on YouTube and on your favorite podcasting platform so that other people can find us. And so you'll find the next great episode when it comes up. And again, thank you so much. And if you want to learn a little bit more about what we're up to, check us out at www.libertyspenders.com. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And until next time, see you soon.